Hello and welcome to Breakfast with Fran, live from Atlanta and the offices of GoSmallBiz.com. We're glad you're with us today, and we look forward to bringing you a great entrepreneur interview in just a minute. But first, let's meet our host. Fran Tarkenton isn't just an NFL Hall of Famer. He's also an entrepreneur, a business owner, and a small business advocate. He's built more than 20 successful companies in the last 30 years with a mission to help his partners, help his customers, and promote other small businesses. Today, you can also find Fran as a frequent contributor to Fox Business, CNN, SiriusXM Radio, and the Wall Street Journal. Our special guest today is Laura Hodgson. In addition to being founder and CEO of two thriving small businesses, Laura is a busy mom and a sought-after public speaker. We're very excited to have her perspective and her expertise on today's webcast. This month's featured extra is another great clip from Fran's chat with the legendary Bernie Marcus, co-founder of the Home Depot. We hope you enjoy the show and come back and join us next month for another great event. And now, here's Fran Tarkenton. Fran?
Well, good morning and welcome to Breakfast with Fran. I have Laura Hodgson here and you're in for a treat. But first of all, I want to thank you for joining us for this breakfast. We've been doing this for about 12 years. We have a very simple mission to help you get smarter. None of us have original ideas, but we need to think all the time, and we need to reinvent ourselves every day. And so our ideas come from what we hear, what we read, what we see. And my mission is to bring you the smartest people that I know. People that have started businesses and built businesses and are constantly reinventing themselves. And so we have Laura here this morning. Now, Laura, I went to the University of Georgia. And I was I was an athlete, and athletes are dumb, of course, right? I mean, we barely can read or write and get through school, but I barely did. And I'm an entrepreneur, but I've been out there trying to get smarter. And Laura, she was a scholarship athlete at Georgia Tech, our arch rival. Yeah, they pretend to play football, but she was a track and field scholarship there. But she may be as smart as anybody I've ever known. And I'm going to stop talking because you want to hear from her. But she got an engineering degree at Georgia Tech. That's hard to do. I couldn't do that. It makes you be able to memorize a lot of things. And then she goes off to Harvard Business School and does a whole nother deal of spending 2 years there in that really kind of different environment. And they are two different environments.
Oh, very different. Very different.
And then she's gone out and started businesses. And Laura, where do you want to start? You want to start with your Nourish, how you started that?
Sure. Because I don't think I just go out to start businesses. I solve problems.
Okay. Go. How did you solve that first problem with the water bottle?
Solve the first problem. Well, the problem started when I became a mom. And for most of my friends, that was a curious concept. Let's just picture Laura at home watching Oprah.
Yeah.
And I was always out of the house, as most young parents are these days. And I was frustrated that there was no healthy way to feed my child or give him something to drink that wasn't full of sugar, or, you had juice boxes, drink pouches, all these things. And I started out complaining about it. I think that's where most of our ideas come from. It was a problem I had. It was a complaint. And my husband got sick of hearing it. He said, well, are you going to do something about it? And I thought, you know what, I should just do something about it. So created the idea for Nourish, had a great business partner. I don't think I would have gotten there by myself. I would have continued to complain about it a lot, and I probably would have thought about it a lot, but I would not have done anything about it. And I think having someone that I talked about it with who said, hey, let's do it together, that gave me accountability, it gave me deadlines, it made me feel responsible for doing something for both of us.
So it wasn't just so simple with an idea, snap a finger and it worked. You had someone to bounce ideas off of.
Oh, absolutely.
And grind through it, didn't you?
Absolutely.
You got to grind through it.
You have to. The final product is never what you started with.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be.
No.
If it is, you didn't improve it enough.
Yeah.
Because the first idea is just the nugget. And I always tell people, when you come up with a great idea, the answer is never, aha. In fact, it's usually laughter of some sort. When I'm brainstorming with people and they throw out an idea and everybody laughs, we stop and we focus on that for 5 minutes. Because when you laugh, that is your body's visceral reaction that something made you uncomfortable, which means it's true. And you got to unpeel that truth. You got to get to the truth. But you have to be willing to, in order to get to it, to challenge your original ideas. Most of us have the first idea and then we're so proud of it, we just want to protect it.
Yeah.
As opposed to put it out there, share it with other people, let them beat it up, and then what you end up with is better. It's sort of like the rock that you find. Until it's polished, it's not a gem, right? But for a lot of us, that's a risky proposition because it's a little emotional.
All right, so you mentioned business is about solving problems.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
absolutely.
All right, let me give you another idea that I always pontificate about, but I live. I think the mission of business is to help people,
Absolutely.
to bring value to people, to solve problems.
Absolutely.
And what you're telling me, you had this original frustration.
Need, right.
You had a need yourself, and then you
Yep.
you had this brainstorm with your partner, somebody you could talk to about to make this
Right.
product really valuable
Right.
and useful, and that would solve a problem.
But I think the key was my passion was solving the problem,
Yes.
not the initial product idea.
No,
And a lot of times when you find people who just fall in love with their product, they stop listening,
Yes.
right? They love their product. It becomes a trophy. And so they don't hear what the customer's saying. They don't hear ideas to fix it. Even if I think about the very first product that we made samples of, the input we got from customers and the things we were able to do to change it made it 10 times better.
Yeah.
But I had to take the pride out of the product. My pride was in solving the problem.
Well, see, here's where because your mission was to solve a problem.
Was to solve the problem.
Your mission was to make this product great
Right.
and to make it a value. You did not mention to me that your mission was to make money.
No.
And you know, that's a great, because
wasn't.
the mission of business is make money.
Right.
I want to make money now. So you got one product, you don't want to think and brainstorm.
Right.
Here, I want to get it out
Right.
there and throw it out there and sell it to somebody whether they need it or not. That's a
Right.
bad
bad-
play,
yeah.
and that's what so many people do, and that's why most people fail in business because
Right.
they haven't learned that. They
But
haven't learned
making
what
money
you-
is important.
But that's a
because if I
byproduct of
don't
this.
ultimately make money, then I can't continue to solve the need.
But it's
the
a
need
byproduct.
is the driver. For
Making
absolutely.
money is a byproduct
That's right.
of this.
That's right.
And don't we see it in the financial world now? Every day we
absolutely.
read about a Ponzi scheme, right? A Ponzi scheme here and a Ponzi scheme there. And it's
Right.
not just Bernie Madoff. It's the people in LIBOR and what's going on in banks around the world and
Right.
trying to, bilk you with fees and so forth because their mission is to make
Make
money, whether it's a valued product, whether you need the
Right.
product or not. And your mission was different, so you've got a sustainable mission,
Right.
my friend. Now, so what did you do? Tell me what the end product was.
So the end product is a spill-proof bottled water for kids and a ready-to-serve baby bottle for babies called Nourish. And we started out, and I'm a contrarian, so I will always do the opposite of what everyone else does. We started out, and the first group that said they wanted to test it was Kroger. Seems logical, largest
Yeah.
grocer in the country.
Yeah.
And I said no. And everyone told me I was nuts. But I knew that if I started there, I didn't have deep pockets of venture capital. I didn't
Yeah.
have all the money to market it and out-scream the big
Yeah.
product companies in Kroger. What I wanted was, where did my customer have the greatest need? Where could I make the biggest impact? And I thought about my own life, and when I was the most stressed, when I was out with my children, and it was travel. It was when I was traveling, when I was out of the house, trying to have a good time. Airports going through security. I mean, that'll make a parent's,
Yeah.
the hair on the back of your neck stand up. And so that's where we started. We started in airports. We started in entertainment venues. We started in hotels. We started in all the places that no one else was. And you know the amazing thing? It is so much easier to be heard when you're not screaming above the clutter,
Yeah.
when you're just talking to the customer in a direct
And the
fashion.
product is kind of a spill-proof bottle. So you put whatever liquid
It comes with water in it,
It's
just
water.
like you would
Comes
buy
with
a
water.
Dasani or an Aquafina, but if you hand one of those to a 2 or 3-year-old,
Yeah.
that's called a bath.
and her product is really spill-proof.
It is absolutely spill-proof.
And-
You can
and-
stand on it, you can squeeze
And
it.
you can reuse it and
You
reuse
can
it and reuse it.
and you can recycle it. So, but again, it came from, I always say your greatest ideas don't come from what you know, they come from what you notice.
How important are partners in building a business like this?
Oh, the most important thing possible.
Really?
You can take an average idea with great people and make a great business. A great idea with average people has very little chance of going anywhere. I truly believe that.
I do too. That makes sense to you out there? Think of that. You don't need to do it all by yourself.
Right. No, in fact, I think all too often, so many people out there have great ideas.
Yeah.
And they might be in little notebooks, they might be in flip charts, they might have never been written down. but you're so afraid to share it with people because you think they might steal it.
Yeah.
And somebody told me
Yeah.
one time at an early age, but if you don't share it, how can I help you? And so I took that risk and I shared it with people, and lo and behold, they didn't run off and make their own. They said, hey, Laura, you should do this. They gave me advice, and they wanted to join the team.
But be careful who you partner with. Be careful
for
who
sure.
you hang out with. You are.
Absolutely.
You are no better than people you hang out with.
That's
Make
right.
sure you're hanging out with people, number one, who have ethics.
Yep.
That want to work with you, that want to help you.
Right.
I don't work with anybody. If I've got to beg somebody to work with me,
That's right.
it doesn't work.
And the ethics are more important than the resume.
Yeah.
I mean, and I made this mistake. When we first started Nourish, we had put together a team that on paper was awesome, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had finance checked, we had marketing checked, we had product development checked, we had legal, we had all the skills that were right, but the chemistry wasn't there. And so a couple people that started with us day one, their goals in life were different, their aspirations were different, and so we started to go in different directions, and we had to make some changes. What I realized is that you can't put together a puzzle that's not meant to be put together.
Yeah.
So to your point, I mean, the person had great marketing skills. We had to have that person,
All
but
right,
they
so,
weren't the
but
right
you had to
person.
recognize that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And-
And it's painful.
Yeah, but when you recognize it, you've got to look at the reality of it
Yeah.
and say, this is not going to work, and you
Right.
have to deal with it honestly.
Absolutely.
And you have to break apart,
No question.
because bad news doesn't get better with age.
It's worse.
It's worse. So you're going to make mistakes, and
Yeah.
you're going to partner with someone that maybe they're not bad people. It just doesn't
Right.
work, and when it does, you've got to recognize that and go somewhere.
Yeah. You'll make lots of mistakes. I always say fail fast and fail forward. The earlier you can hit a failure or a bump in the road,
We always make
and
more
the
mistakes
quicker
than we
you
do.
can get past it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've made mistakes in product design, but coming out of each of those, we got better, and the mistakes were welcome.
Yeah, because if you're going to farm, be a farmer, you got to put your hands in the soil and farm.
Yeah.
If you're going to do business, you got to put your hands in the soil and
Yeah.
do it yourself. You cannot delegate it out.
Yeah.
You've got to be the rainmaker. You've got to be the thinker, and you've got to be the person that brings in the team
Right.
and the people and talk. And so, tell us now how that Nourish led to the next business.
That's right. So Nourish actually led me to start a finance business, which of course is logical, right? Bottled water, finance. That's of course where you should go. Again, I had a problem. We were growing the company. We got a big order.
Yeah.
We took about 30 seconds. We were like, yes, we got this great big order. Crap, we got this great big order. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have
Okay.
deep pockets, so we were going to have to buy materials, make product, ship product.
Yeah.
We had no idea when we'd be paid. And we couldn't find a solution for that. And so once again, in my search for a solution, I met some very interesting people that had interesting ideas or had a lot of deep background. And I happened to be talking to one gentleman who had a very deep background in sort of finance and accounting with small businesses. And I just asked a relatively dumb question. I asked why his current product didn't work like credit cards. And, you know, he called me a couple days later and he said, Laura, dang it, you don't come from finance, but I can't stop thinking about your question. Can I have 3 hours of your time? I want to know where you're going with that. And where I was going with it is, what I realized is I didn't have a water business. I was a bank. I didn't want to start a bank. I have no interest in having a bank. Yet I was a bank because every time I sent an invoice to my customer that said net 30, knowing full well they weren't going to pay me for 90 days, I was the bank for 90 days. I can tell you for certain that my cost of capital is much higher than my customers.
Now think of that. We think that you send somebody a product,
Right.
and they pay you cash right on or credit card right, and in so many cases they don't. And the
Right.
bigger the companies that you work with,
The less likely they are.
they're going to make you wait 90
That's
days to
right.
get your
That's
money.
right.
So that becomes
Right.
a problem for entrepreneurs,
Cash
for sole
flow.
proprietors. Cash flow
Yeah.
is non-existent.
My largest
And-
use of capital was lending to my
all right,
customers.
so that's a huge problem for entrepreneurs all over the
Right.
world. How,
Yeah.
now, how did you
So
solve that problem?
we came up with a solution called Now Account, which is
Yeah.
just launched, and it for a business that sells to another business or government, when you send the invoice and your customer won't pay you with a credit card, you put it on your Now Account, you get paid immediately. But the beautiful thing is your customer doesn't know you've done that. It doesn't change anything for them. They still get their invoice, they still get their free 90
Yeah.
days or whatever they want to take to pay, but you've already been paid, so you can go about your business of making widgets, hiring people, buying materials, buying equipment, and Now account funds your customer, but they do it completely transparently. The customer doesn't even know that they're sitting there. So
Genius.
So at the end of the day, small businesses are really collectively the largest bank in the country.
And
they don't need to be.
Think how simple these two things are. A spill-proof bottle for your babies.
Right.
You make a business out of that, and now small businesses, you give them a way to be able to increase their cash flow and get money now with a Now account. And I've been talking to Laura she told me about the Now account 6 months ago and watched the evolution of this. And it always takes a little longer than you think.
Oh, always.
It always
so frustrating.
does, because you want to do it right. And don't get impatient.
I know,
Get the right
impatient.
people. Think, ask, look at the reality, solve the problem, and keep making your product better. And you'll never stop making your product better.
And I think, people always say, how do you come up with these ideas? I'm not any smarter than anyone else, but I'm very curious.
Yeah.
And I love to ask dumb questions because they're the best questions because nobody else will ask them.
So good. Laura, you've told me so many times, you don't do a lot of television, a lot of streaming video.
No.
You speak to live audiences.
I do. I love
and
it.
you talk to them. What do you say to them?
I think the key is when I sit in front of groups of people, we've all been to conferences, we've all been to training seminars, and we all walk out after 30, 45 minutes, honestly more frustrated than we started. Because you hear these speakers get up and they tell you all the things you've heard before. Get a mentor, manage your business this way, look for cash. How do I do that? I mean, there's never a how. There's sort of this ethereal what. And so I just decided that we needed to get real. Tell people what I've failed at, what I've done well, what I still haven't figured out. And I realized the things that frustrate people because they frustrate me. And people always used to say, for example, follow your passion. If you want to start a business, follow your passion.
Okay.
Sounds awesome, right? I mean, come in, Tony Robbins, follow your passion. You walk out of the room all pumped up. Now I don't have a clue what to do. And I realized, so finally I asked a group of people, I said, how many people here know what they're passionate about? Nobody raised their hand. And that's not a bad thing, because what I realized is most of us don't know what our passion is, not because we're wandering through life aimlessly, but because we're good at a lot of things. Mm-hmm. I mean, most of us have lots of skill sets. And unfortunately, at least in this country, people assume that if you're good at something, you love it. And that's not true. I'm good at a lot of things that I really don't like.
Yeah.
And I came up with a technique to figure out what you're passionate about. If you were to take your to-do list every day for a couple weeks, look at what's left on the list on Friday afternoon each week. It's always the same thing. It's what you don't like.
Yeah.
So if I look at my to-do list, for example, and I find an extra hour in a day, I'll go pitch another customer. I'll go talk to a new business partner. I for sure will not reconcile my accounting, even though I teach finance. I'm good at finance. I don't love it. So I know that what my passion is has to do with promoting, business development, selling, marketing. And what I often find is that you might be someone who has a job in accounting, and the fact that you like people interaction, creativity, marketing development doesn't mean you should get out of accounting. It just means that the role you have in that should take advantage of those skills.
All right. I love what you're saying. Well, let me just ask some questions here. I played professional football for 18 years. You might not have known that, but I did. And I was pretty good. And when we were winning, I loved it. Mm-hmm. When we were losing, it was horrific.
Sure.
There was nothing fun about what I did. And people said, well, you must love being an NFL player. Only when we win. And I understand the passion thing. And when we had an organization or a team without the right players, without the right mix, and it was football still, right? And we were getting beat week in, week out. We were failing. I wanted to quit. This was not fun. Oh, I was on television, and there was the newspapers, and I was getting paid a lot of money.
But you can't confuse what your passion is in here with the immediate sense of fun. Your passion was for winning.
Yes,
and your
success.
passion, absolutely.
Yeah.
Football was a way to do that.
That's right.
Just like in my business, my passion is for the need I'm solving in society or the customer that I'm helping. The fact that I'm selling it in a bottle of water, that's just a vehicle.
All right. You're an athlete.
I try.
You were, yeah, and you were a track and field star at Georgia Tech. And so you were good at that. But if you were successful, you kept at it. I kept at football from high school to college to pro because I was good at it.
Right.
And I was having success at it most of the time. But I find I finished football at age 38, but I'm in business already. I didn't have any problem taking that passion of succeeding and helping people, making my teammates better in football or solving problems.
Right.
I have just as much, if not more, passion in business and entrepreneurship as I did in football.
Yeah.
Explain
and
that
I
to
think
me.
I think that's a good thing. I think most entrepreneurs can be passionate about a lot of things. That's the what. Yeah. It's the why that really drives their passion, and how it's applied can change. I think for people who maybe try entrepreneurship and don't do well, it's because their passion was about the thing. And I've worked with people like that before who love the product. I worked for a technology company one time, and one of my associates loved the product. If you asked him about what he did, he'd tell you about all the whiz-bang things that the product did. I said, but how does it help people? That wasn't his passion. His passion was the coolness of the product. That's a great product designer, not a great entrepreneur. Because the entrepreneur has to figure out the need as the passion. And that can morph. And you can be just as passionate about one product as another as long as they both serve a need.
Wow. That's so insightful. I had a technology company right across the street here in Atlanta. I had 100 scientists, product developers. And I would go over there and say, guys, you wouldn't, man, the products you're building, people are loving.
Right.
And they looked at me and they said, really? They really like that garbage? Because, really, it can do so much more.
Right.
I know right now it floats like a boat, but
It can fly like a bee.
It can fly and this and all. They were never happy.
Right.
Never happy.
Right.
That's what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My addiction is to always improving something, always coming up with the next solution.
The greatness
I don't think there's
of
medication
these
for that.
conversations is and what we're trying to do is talk to smart people that are in the arena doing things, not pontificating and writing books and selling DVDs and things about motivation and personal development and so forth. Most of those people have one thing in common: they've never ever done anything. They never built a business. They don't talk like she talks. But Laura, she's like a farmer. She puts her hands in the soil and she works it. And she is working to solve problems and have products and services that help a customer. Isn't that a novel idea?
Customer. Otherwise, it's a hobby.
But look, and you look what Steve Jobs did. Here's a guy, no college education, started off with a bang, and then it fell apart. He gets fired, comes back, and starts doing things that we've never thought about. iPad, iPhone, iTunes, and he never lost his passion, did he?
Right.
Up until the day he died.
The interesting thing is the iPod wasn't the first MP3 player. There were lots of MP3 players.
Yeah.
They didn't sell very well because they were a cool gadget that didn't think about the user. Steve Jobs understood the user. He was about the customer, not about the product. The product just solved needs.
At the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, it's all about the customer.
Absolutely.
It's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about Laura. It's about the customer and having products or services that really solve a problem, that bring great value, and that's what it's about. And that happens to be the truth of entrepreneurship.
And in many cases, you're solving a problem the customer may not know they have. And that's the hard part, is having that vision to say, this is becoming a problem. Without waiting and saying, what's your problem today? But the only way to do that, I've discovered, is to notice things. The biggest barrier to innovation is what you know. It's reality. It's the way it's always been done. It's the person who's curious enough to say, well, why not? What if? That's where all innovation comes from.